My favorite community garden story is actually about the time we called Gloria Ord for an interview. Gloria is amazing, and this story is a testament to how amazing she is when it comes to community gardens. Jen Hill and I were at the Hazelwood Garden going through resumes for people who we should be giving a call about interviewing for the community garden coordinator position. And Jen and I are going through resumes and calling, and we get to Gloria's, and Gloria lived not that far from the first garden. And so I said, oh, that's kind of neat. I grew up on that street. So I was like, I'll call this one, right? And I call, and Gloria's husband answers the phone, and I say, hi, is Gloria Ord there? And her husband, Gary, says, oh, no, she's not. Can I ask who's calling? And I said, oh, it's Marc from the community garden, just calling to see about an interview for the position she applied for. And he says, oh, well, she's actually at the community garden. And so I put down the phone, and I hang up the phone. It's a cell phone. And I hang it up, and I go, Gloria Ord? And she just pops up and is like, hello. And it was noon or so, and she'd been there since 6 a.m. working on the garden in the first weeks of the garden. She was there a lot, so she was a volunteer before she became the coordinator who did all this amazing work at so many of these gardens. So that is my all-time favorite community garden story.
Was the kale. We grew dinosaur kale this year, and it was huge. And I call it elephant kale because it goes up and it looks like the trunk of an elephant, and it was just absolutely huge. Awesome stuff. We've had people growing pumpkins, yeah. I grew the baby bear pumpkins the one year, and the sugar baby watermelons. Yeah, it's really neat. You could try different things and see how they work.
There's a few. There is a few. The lady, there was a lady that had a garden in Hazelwood. She'd had a heart attack, and she really wanted to be outside getting well. She got a plot. Her son did have to dig the plot for her. I was working there all year that year, so I helped her quite often if I could. When she first came to the garden, she could only be there 10-15 minutes, and she would leave. She would bring her lawn chair, and as the season went on, she could do a little bit more in her garden, and the pleasure that you seen on her face, the pleasure. And she told me a couple of times how the community garden was wonderful for her, and in fact I believe that she's looking to go back to that location this year because it's now a garden again.
Whenever.
So an interesting story about the property. There's a big old, I think it's a red maple, and it's got a hive of naturalized hive of bees living in it, and my mom to this day, she still wants to know what's going on with those bees. She was so ecstatic that we had bees living in that tree producing honey, and I'm sure that really helped the community garden out in the sense that it had the natural pollinators right there on the site, being able to help out.
My favorite story, which I'm told is other people's favorite too, and I can laugh at myself now, is when I was chased out of the garden by the snakes. Refused to get out of my car for a while there at the garden. I was by the shed, and for those of you that had been there, it was the white shed, and a snake came out of the some of the medicines there, and no one else seen it but me, so I jumped about 10 feet in the air, and I'm screaming, and I take off running to my car, and the snake is coming behind me, and people thought that was pretty funny.
I think to see the seniors so involved, to see them really take ownership of the kinds of things that we're growing, and they're already starting to plan, like even in the middle of winter when the snow is still coming down, they're starting to plan the kinds of things that they want in the garden, and going through gardening books and thinking about the things that we did last year and how to make that better. We have 3 more big boxes coming this year, so because there's different things that they want to try now, and it's being taken on by them now. Now, at first it was a project that I started and I really felt strongly about. Now it's a project for them, and they've taken ownership, and it's a really rewarding experience.
One of the first things they had me do was get together with Andy Tonkin, I can't remember, 1 or 2 other people, or 3 or 4 other people, and we tore down an old building at the Nova Vita that they weren't using, and that was going to be like a shed for tools and wheelbarrows and that kind of stuff. And it was really neat to meet Andy, who I subsequently went canoeing with in Northern Ontario, a year or two later. But what a neat thing to meet some interesting characters right off the bat, and to take part in helping to put together some of the basics for community garden.
One of my favorite moments working in the Community Garden Network was when we started the Friendship House Garden, which is now called Grey Street Organic Garden. And when we started that garden, we weren't sure of the community response, and we did several information sessions, and we were very conservative with our plot numbers, and we created an opening event. And when that opening event came at the end of May, I came that morning and we had hot dogs and we had balloons and we had seeds for the community. And when I looked around the garden, it was full, and people were helping each other bring soil and mulch and helping people plant, and people were sharing seeds with each other. And that for me was the epitome of what this in the community is needed for. We need to be sharing and bringing people together, and that day proved to me that this project really helps us achieve that.
One of the neat things that we've really appreciated about having a community garden is just the opportunity to interact with people from all walks of life, from all different parts. We have the opportunity now to build relationships with people in a way that is very non-threatening, a way that is a real blessing. I see people walking their dogs, and I talk with them now, and so it's just been a real blessing for that. Also the opportunity for we have a ministerial that our church is a part of, and to make the meal that we have soup and buns when we get together, and to make the meal with food from the garden is kind of a neat way to say, hey, look, this is what the garden does, right? To be able to put packages in the freezer and to be able to say, hey, look, I grew this. There's nothing better than being able to go to your garden and dig out some carrots, dig out some potatoes, dig up whatever it is, and have it like 15 minutes later or 20 minutes later you're home and you prepare it, and a half hour later it's on the table. So within an hour it's from the garden to the table. There's just nothing better that competes with the flavor of that.
Absolutely, the kickoff was outstanding. We had music in the gym, kids music based on around growing and planting, and as I said, we had community representatives that came. And there was just so much energy and enthusiasm that day as we went outside and sat around the garden and heard representatives from 6 nations, for instance, come and speak as well about their traditions and ceremonies and show us some of that on that day. And certainly that was something that I remembered.
For our part, for Canadian Mental Health and our clients, it was a really good opportunity for them to get involved, not just with their own community garden, but also with other organizations, and they would they'd be bumping shoulders with somebody from Nova Vita, or talking to somebody from the Grand River Health Center, and all of a sudden the natural links were beginning to occur, which was amazing. We also as a group were able to do something that other people benefited from. And for our guys, to be able to give back to the community in a real way had some real meaning to them. And they felt useful and cared for and could care about other people. I remember us taking corn and piling stalks of corn in the back of my truck and taking it to the food bank and dumping that off, and how grateful people were to have that kind of fresh corn that they could use on their home plate. So that was pretty monumental.